In our headlines on this Thursday afternoon, March 7th, here in South Korea. A stern warning against putting patients' lives in danger has been shared by President Yoon Suk-yeol amid the medical walkout that has led to a contingency pledge of some $96 million. Meanwhile, in the U.S., Republican presidential hopeful Nikki Haley has dropped out of the race, leaving her counterpart Donald Trump to face Democrat and incumbent Joe Biden in November. Staying in the U.S., Federal Reserve Chairman Chair Powell raises prospects of interest rate cuts in the future, depending on domestic economic indicators, but refrains from sharing an actual timeline. President Yoon Suk-yeol has issued a stern warning to doctors in training who remain engaged in a massive walkout that has put in motion an emergency healthcare response system worth over 128 billion won. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
There is no tolerance for doctors who neglect their duties, infringing people's rights to life and health under the Korean Constitution. That's according to President Yoon Suk-yeol on Wednesday, as thousands of junior doctors continue their illegal boycott against the government's plan to raise the number of medical students at universities. Chairing a meeting at the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures headquarters, Yoon called on authorities to thoroughly implement measures to stabilize medical services, saying the government has some $96 million of contingency funds to ensure that emergency care and essential services remain in operation. Such measures involve a pilot project for nurses to support medical treatment, deploy military doctors, and support labour costs to recruit additional personnel. Also, Yoon said the so-called Big Five hospitals in the country will focus on treating seriously ill patients, while local general hospitals will tend to those in less critical conditions. These measures, he said, will help stabilise the medical system amid the ongoing crisis. Addressing his cabinet ministers earlier in the day, Yoon issued a strong warning, saying the doctors have put the lives and health of citizens at risk.
의사들의 집단 행동은 스스로 책무를 져버리는 일이며 자유주의와 법치주의의 근간을 흔드는 것입니다. 국민의 생명을 볼모로 하는 불법적인 집단 행동에는 법과 원칙에 따라 엄중히 대응할 수밖에 없습니다.
Yoon said as the state is constitutionally obliged to protect the lives and health of its citizens, doctors are licensed to carry out this heavy public duty. He asserted that doctors' own rights and freedoms also come with responsibility, shooting down claims that suspending medical licenses for an estimated 7,000 partaking in the strikes infringes on their rights. At the same time, the president appeared to extend a message of reassurance. While reiterating the need for reform to the healthcare system, he pledged to spare no investment and support to raise the capacity and quality of medical schools to meet global standards, and promised to actively heed voices from the medical community. Yoon also said authorities will address the laborious sacrifices of young resident doctors, restructuring the personnel system to provide optimal support for medical staff. According to the president, since the national health insurance was first introduced in 1977, the number of doctors has only grown by sevenfold and the number of medical students 2.2 times, despite medical expenses having spiked over 500 times. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Also on the president's agenda, earlier on this Thursday, President Yoon Suk-yeol addressed the public in Incheon during the government's 18th policy briefing. There he spoke of plans to hammer out a new rail line by the year 2030 to cut commute time between Incheon and Seoul to half an hour. What's more, train connections to cities like Busan and Mokpo will also aim for a 2-hour travel time. President Yoon also shared his hopes of creating landmark attractions in Incheon to make most of its appeal as a, quote, gateway to and from Korea. In other news, the cost of dining out is rising faster than the rate of overall inflation amid soaring prices of fruits and vegetables. According to Statistics Korea on this Thursday, prices of vegetables in February posted an on-year jump of 12%, the highest since March 2023, amid poor harvest following heavy snow. Fruit prices also surged 40% last month. The government, in response, has pledged some $15.4 million to ease the price burden on consumers. Over in the U.S., prospects of interest rate cuts remain in place, but their timing remains unclear. Now, this is based on the latest remarks by the head of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, and my colleague Shin Se-byuk covers his cautious outlook.
U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has indicated potential interest rate cuts in 2024. Testifying before Congress on Wednesday, Powell reaffirmed plans to cut interest rates within the year, though he did not pin down an exact timeline.
If the economy evolves broadly as expected, it will likely be appropriate to begin dialing back policy restraint at some point this year.
Despite this, Powell adopted a cautious approach regarding rate reductions, emphasizing that the 2% inflation target has not yet been met.
But the economic outlook is uncertain, and ongoing progress toward our 2% objective for inflation is not assured.
The Fed chair also noted that the U.S. economy is showing no sign of an imminent recession, saying that restoring price stability and achieving maximum employment must come before lowering interest rates. Powell's remarks at the December 2023 FOMC meeting, which were made public in January, suggested an end to the aggressive rate hike policy the U.S. has been following. At that time, FOMC officials anticipated 3 rate cuts, each by a 0.25 percentage point by the end of 2024, while the actual policy path would depend on how the economy evolves. Following Powell's testimony, U.S. stocks closed higher on Wednesday, breaking a 2-day losing streak on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average saw a 0.2% rise. The broader S&P 500 index advanced by 0.5%, and the Nasdaq Composite climbed by 0.6%. Meanwhile, concerns over a U.S. banking crisis triggered by commercial real estate issues were addressed by Powell as well. This was in the context of shares in holding bank New York Community Bancorp dropping nearly 40% on Wednesday, following news that the bank had downgraded to below investment grade due to bad commercial real estate loans and was attempting to secure new funding. Powell acknowledged this as a significant challenge, but reassured that it was manageable and unlikely to impact the wider economy significantly. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Staying in the U.S., Republican presidential hopeful Nikki Haley has dropped out of the race, leaving her counterpart Donald Trump to face Democrats and incumbent President Joe Biden. Our Incheon has the latest.
But the time has now come to suspend my campaign. I said I wanted Americans to have their voices heard. I have done that. I have no regrets. And although I will no longer be a candidate, I will not stop using my voice for the things I believe in.
On Wednesday, the morning after Super Tuesday, Nikki Haley, the former South Carolina governor and ambassador to the United Nations for a period during Donald Trump's presidency, ended her race for the White House. She won the primaries in Washington, D.C. on Sunday and Vermont on Super Tuesday, but lost more than 20 other contests to Donald Trump. On Super Tuesday alone, Trump won 14 of the 15 Republican nominating contests. Bowing out, Haley emphasized that it was important to continue U.S. global leadership. She had said throughout her campaign that the United States must help Ukraine against Russian aggression, which goes against Trump's stance on foreign affairs. She did not endorse Donald Trump, which means her supporters will now likely have to choose between the former and incumbent presidents in November. Just as Haley was conceding the race, Trump posted on social media that she had been trounced on Super Tuesday before inviting her supporters to back him. However, the Democrats' presidential frontrunner Joe Biden praised Haley for daring to speak the truth about Trump and extended his own invitation to her supporters. Haley's exit sets up a rematch between Donald Trump and Joe Biden in the November election, which will be the first repeat U.S. presidential contest since 1956. Both candidates have faced criticism, with Biden's age and Trump's legal issues, something that voters will be left to ponder. Iunjin, Arirang News.
North Korea's Kim Jong-un has called for intensified war training. According to the regime's state-run media on this Thursday, Kim was at a key military base earlier on Wednesday, where he called for practical, actual war training to bolster combat capabilities. He claimed such training would serve to suppress enemies with overwhelming force and to contain acts of war on the Korean peninsula. Earlier this week, North Korea condemned the ongoing Freedom Shield exercise between South Korea and the U.S., calling the drill a rehearsal for war and warning of a price to pay. Meanwhile, over in Vienna, Seoul's ambassador to Austria, Ham Sang-uk, has called on North Korea to surrender its nuclear weapons ambitions. The call was made during Wednesday's International Atomic Energy Agency's regular board meeting, during which he added that Pyongyang's hostile arms policy was undermining peace and stability on the Korean peninsula and beyond. He also asserted that Pyongyang's military cooperation with Moscow is clear indication of the security connection between this particular region and that of the broader international community. And Seoul is expanding its expenditure on weapons development this year to better respond to heightened security concerns here and elsewhere. Our Peunji has details.
South Korea plans to spend more than $5 billion this year on building overwhelming military power to counter North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. This is a 12% budget increase compared to last year. Announcing this on Wednesday, the country's Defense Acquisition Program Administration said the budget will be used to deploy a next-generation Aegis destroyer and a 3,000-ton strategic submarine, as well as to develop a long-range surface-to-air missile for a layered missile defense system. These are the key weapons needed for the country's so-called three-axis defense system, a strategy for the country's military to respond to an attack from the north. It includes, first, preemptively striking North Korea's nuclear and missile sites, second, intercepting the North's missiles, and third, mass retaliation against North Korea following an attack on the south. The budget will also be used to strengthen space power. After launching its first military spy satellite late last year, the country aims to put 2 more satellites into orbit by the end of this year. This is part of South Korea's efforts to boost the independent monitoring capabilities of North Korea, as the satellites are expected to help reduce the heavy reliance on U.S. satellite imagery. Meanwhile, the country also aims to spend about $1.8 billion to develop new military technologies, focusing on fields such as artificial intelligence and quantum technology. The government said it aims to become the world's 7th advanced country in military technology by 2027. And also by 2027, South Korea aims to become the 4th largest arms exporter in the world. To achieve this, the government said it aims to reach $20 billion in arms exports this year. Peunji, Arirang News.
Crew members of a commercial ship traveling through the Gulf of Aden have been killed by a missile launched by Yemen rebels. The attack reportedly marks the first civilian losses of lives in these waters in protest of Israel's counteroffensive in Gaza. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Iran-backed Yemen-based Houthi rebels have been attacking commercial ships passing through the Red Sea since November last year in what they say is retaliation for Israel's war in Gaza. On Wednesday, these ongoing attacks resulted in the first civilian deaths. According to both U.S. and British officials, 2 crew members of a commercial ship were killed and 6 others injured in a strike by the rebel group using an anti-ship ballistic missile. The Greek-owned Barbados-flagged ship was hit approximately 93 kilometers off the coast of Yemen's port of Aden, with crew members forced to abandon the ship. A shipping industry source who spoke on the condition of anonymity said that the U.S. and Indian warships attempted to rescue the crew, but 3 remain missing. The Houthis later claimed responsibility for the attack, which U.S. officials say was their 5th missile attack in the past 2 days. A Houthi spokesman said the targeting operation came as the ship's crew rejected warning messages from Yemeni naval forces. Since November last year, the rebels have been launching drones and missiles against international commercial shipping, arguing that they're responding to Israel's war in Gaza. The attacks have disrupted global shipping, forcing shipping companies to take longer and more expensive routes around southern Africa. And despite international condemnation and a call to end hostilities in the Red Sea, the Houthis said they won't stop until the aggression is stopped and the siege on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip is lifted. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Over in Europe, the Digital Markets Act goes into effect this week as part of efforts to address the rampant dominance of tech giants online. Our Park Gonu explains.
The Digital Markets Act, regulating tech giants from abusing their market-dominating power, starts its full application in all 27 European Union nations from Thursday local time. On the first day, the European Commission will be receiving reports from the 6 regulated companies designated as gatekeepers on what measures they have taken to comply with the law. Those 6 gatekeepers are Amazon, Apple, Google parent Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, and TikTok owner ByteDance. Based on the reports, companies will be evaluated on whether they are following the law, and if they are considered to be obeying it insufficiently, an investigation will be launched immediately. Under the law, which aims to make the digital market fairer and more contestable, the EU has set obligations on 22 services the gatekeepers operate, which include operating systems, social media, search engines, app stores, and online advertisements. One of the biggest changes under the law is the requirement for gatekeepers to allow third parties to interoperate with their own services. For example, iPhone users in the EU will be able to download applications from outside Apple's App Store. The DMA also bans companies from giving preferences to their own services. In this case, the Google Flights button that appears at the top of search results will now be removed when users search for plane tickets on Google. Companies violating obligations could face hefty fines, up to a maximum of 20% of their overall annual turnover earned globally for repeated infringements. Pundits forecast that the EU's Digital Markets Act could possibly become the standard for regulating big tech companies in other countries in the near future. Park Gonu, Arirang News.
Korea's southern port city of Busan is currently playing host to the country's annual drone show, which marks its 8th edition and takes place under the theme of unlimited advances. Our An Sung-jin was there.
A boundless expansion of drones. This is the theme of the 2024 Drone Show Korea, the largest of its kind in Asia. The 3-day event held in the city of Busan caters to more than 200 drone-related businesses from 10 different countries, including China, the Czech Republic, and the U.S. Hosted by the Trade and Transport Ministries as well as other governmental organizations, the show aims to act as a platform that connects the private, public, military, and education sectors to establish a drone industry ecosystem.
We are focusing here in the Korea for another partnership and cooperation with drone companies, but also the research institutes and authorities. So we are also in the central of the Europe, and I think it is a very good access point to the Europe market, also for the Korean companies. So we are here to strengthen this cooperation and together develop this drone industry.
Domestic drone-related private companies showcased how drones can be commercialized and used in everyday life. It displayed the latest technologies in urban air mobility as a monitoring system for vehicle safety and traffic management.
When first developed, drones were manually controlled. Now this VR mock flying simulation shows one of the technologies from South Korea's defense industry, which uses artificial intelligence.
The integration of drones in the defense sector is expected to grow as AI-based manned and unmanned combat systems are developed further. It also presented the use of high-altitude unmanned aerial vehicles, which are now in mass production.
As the number of military personnel is expected to decrease over time, the operation area that one person has to cover will increase. In such cases, this can be replaced by drones to increase efficiency.
The exhibition also promoted various drone entertainment, such as drone racing VR, drone football esports, drone basketball demonstrations, and other displays. South Korea's drone market is expected to reach more than $1 billion in market value by 2030. As the government stresses the need for sufficient R&D and infrastructure, the framework for necessary regulations will be critical in advancing the drone industry. An Sung-jin, Arirang News, Busan.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. In Ukraine, a Russian missile strike hit the Black Sea port of Odessa on Wednesday during a summit between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis. The attack was reportedly roughly 500 to 800 meters from the leaders, close enough for them to see and hear it. The Russian Defense Ministry said its troops successfully hit a hangar housing Ukrainian naval drones in the port. The recent attack comes a few days after 12 people, including 5 children, were killed by a Russian drone strike on Odessa. The Ukrainian and Greek leaders visited the building hit in that earlier strike to pay tribute to the victims. Zelensky accused Russia of not caring who they target and called Moscow a terrorist army. In Egypt, amid an economic crisis that has gripped the country for more than 2 years, a new bailout agreement worth $8 billion was signed with the International Monetary Fund. The agreement is an expansion of a $3 billion fund facility agreed in December 2022. The deal came after the Egyptian Central Bank announced it would let its pound currency trade freely and delivered an interest rate hike of 600 basis points to stabilize the economy. As part of the new deal, Egypt will receive an additional $1.2 billion from a separate facility promoting environmental sustainability. The Egyptian economy has been severely impacted by several factors, including years of government austerity, the COVID-19 pandemic, fallout from the war in Ukraine, and most recently, the conflict in Gaza. In Haiti, armed gangs are seeking to oust the country's Prime Minister Ariel Henry. The U.S. State Department, responding to claims that Washington was trying to persuade the Haitian Prime Minister to resign, has said that this is not the case. Rather, the State Department spokesperson said on Wednesday it's calling for Henry to expedite the transition to an empowered and inclusive governance structure that will move with urgency to help the country prepare for a multinational security support mission. The mission, backed by the United Nations but stalled for months, would aim to address the nation's security situation and pave the way for free and fair elections. The comments come after the Miami Herald had earlier reported that U.S. officials called Henry mid-flight when he was returning to Haiti via the U.S. to persuade him to step aside. In Mexico, a group of protesters demanding answers about the 43 college students who disappeared in 2014 broke down the door of the presidential palace with a truck on Wednesday. Several demonstrators were stopped by military police before reaching the hall where Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador was holding a news conference. A decade ago, the students' disappearance from a teacher training college shocked the country. According to Mexican government officials and United Nations reports, it led to a state cover-up and abuses during the investigation into their disappearance. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. More wet and cloudy weather is in store for central regions and Gyeongsang-do areas. Mountainous regions in Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-puk-do could see up to 5 centimeters of snow. Nearby inland regions could see up to 3 centimeters. Stay safe on the roads. Meanwhile, the capital area could see spotty showers, but all the precipitation should let up tonight. Then colder air will drop temperatures to below norms. Get ready for the sub-zero morning temperatures through the weekend. Afternoon highs should be 1 to 5 degrees lower than yesterday, topping out at 8 degrees Celsius in Seoul, 10 degrees for most of the southern provinces this afternoon. Those in Jeollado provinces could have brighter skies than other parts of the country. After a brief sprinkle this weekend, we are expecting more spring-like temperatures under sunnier skies. Until then, take care not to catch a cold. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Right, and that ends our Thursday afternoon newscast. Coming up next is our daily panel session, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.
Lotte takes a new leap beyond its boundaries. Our change will lead to better lives for all. New Lotte, the power of a better world. New today, better tomorrow. Lotte.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
K-pop girl group Twice and its latest album With Youth topped the Billboard 200 this past Sunday, giving the group its first #1 on the main US album chart. So what does this latest feat mean for the group? Who are these solo female K-pop artists rocking stages in recent times? And who are these solo male artists seeking to do the same? Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Issues and Insiders. I'm Min Sun-hee. Today we delve into the latest on the K-pop front here and elsewhere. For this, I have the head of DFSB Collective, Bernie Jo, here in the studio. Bernie, thank you so much for making the time to be here.
Oh, it's good to be back.
I also have Jeff Benjamin with us. Jeff, welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be back too.
Right, let's begin here in the studio. Bernie, K-pop girl group Twice topped the Billboard 200 chart this past Sunday. What would you say is the appeal of its latest album?
Well, you know, obviously, I think we have to say music. But no, I think it goes way beyond that, actually. Over the past few weeks, it's been actually really a phenomenal sort of headline-grabbing momentum at the moment for K-pop, but particularly specifically when we talk about the Billboard 200. Many of the statistics that came out just recently from Luminate, the data analytics company behind the Billboard charts, was absolutely startling and stunning. Last year, when we just look at the Billboard Top 200, I believe nearly a fourth to 30% of the #1 debuts in the U.S. were K-pop albums. And when we do the number crunching, obviously at the top was American artists, U.S. artists, but right pulling up almost neck and neck #2 was K-pop, Korean artists from South Korea. And then a distant third was what we call ROW, rest of the world. So the fact that South Korea is becoming so dominant on not just the album charts, but the CD charts, that news was just sinking in when right out of the gates, Twice grabbed the top spot. And with impressive numbers. Now, last year, they broke the Billboard 200 record for the most albums sold by a K-pop girl band, but they only made it to #2. But this time around, they climbed to the top, they hit the top, and yeah, they're the first non-English and more importantly, K-pop artist to hit #1 for 2024. So the momentum just continues to move on with Twice.
And a great start, of course, to this year. Jeff, what is the significance of this feat by Twice, in your opinion?
Yeah, Bernie made the excellent point that it's something that I think me and many of their fans might agree that it is an overdue accomplishment because they have had such strong numbers and such big numbers for so long that they do have the biggest sales week ever for a female K-pop artist in the U.S. But, you know, timing, competition, all these things change up where you're going to land on the chart. So they haven't gotten that sort of elusive #1, but this was their chance to do it. It also speaks to a really significant moment for female groups in general. Before sort of this new K-pop era of chart-topping girl groups, we hadn't seen an all-female act top the Billboard 200 since 2008 with a U.S. girl group called Danity Kane. In the last 3 years now, we've seen a girl group from Korea be able to chart every year. 2022 with Blackpink. Last year was New Jeans able to top the Billboard 200. And now Twice finally gets that moment themselves. And to me, personally, on a more, storytelling, journalistic level, I also love that this is Twice's moment to sort of connect in a larger way to the international audiences. There's a lot of talk I see from fans and in the industry about a group, when they are growing, longer than that sort of initial 7-year contract period. what happens to a group after that? And Twice, coming up in their 9th year together, they are going strong, hitting new international feats. They're going to be playing a stadium show in Las Vegas in America next weekend as part of their encore for their world tour. There's some really exciting things happening in Twice's story, especially with international fans. And I just love that this new album is able to connect to Twice in a really, I think, special way. The whole album and the songs speak a lot to their friendship, connecting with one another, spending their youth with each other and their fans. There's a really sweet and important story, and I got to talk to the girls, the members, about it last week ahead of the album. So it's a really significant one for many reasons.
Right. And before we delve further into the plans by artists, there's a question I'd like to ask you, Bernie, about the marketing strategy with regard to traditional albums. Now, Korean idols are known to include like memorabilia, like photos in their traditional albums in hopes of boosting their sales. Do you suppose this particular strategy also served its purpose in the U.S. market?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about K-pop albums selling so well, many people realize that, yes, the albums sell well, but when we look at the CD charts, last year, again, this data is still fresh, 9 out of the top 10 best-selling CDs in the United States last year were K-pop CDs. Now, some naysayers, critics, I might even go so far as to say haters, they know that the marketing and promotional technique when it comes to selling CDs in the U.S. is famous, maybe borderline infamous, in the sense that they can convince fans with very little arm twisting to not just buy one, but multiple copies of CDs. Now, the reality is that K-pop CDs, they're not music. They're merchandise. And when fans buy the CDs, they're not buying it necessarily to listen to music. It's them voting to make sure that their favorite artist is going to have the highest, fastest chance of hitting #1. Now, that being said, a lot of music industry executives in the United States and frankly around the world are studying the secret sauce behind this, stupendous sales in K-pop CDs. And it's become no secret that the next Taylor Swift album is going to have, surprise, surprise, photo cards. So it begs the question, I wonder where they got that idea. But, look, a lot of people are studying how, and more importantly, why K-pop CDs sell well. And I think what it is, it's not just the marketing, it's not just the packaging, but really the presentation, not promotions, the packaging. And the reality is that they've made K-pop CDs feel like collector's items, and the fans want to collect.
Right. And then now, Jeff, there's been a rise, as you mentioned, about we have upcoming performances, that is, and we also see solo female artists on stages in recent times. What more can you tell us about the endeavors of our solo female K-pop artists?
And quickly before we move on from Twice, I got to shout out, one of my Twice albums, of course, because it's beautiful. But Bernie explained it perfectly. And we see you, Taylor. We know what you're doing. But let's focus now on the solo females. There's a lot of exciting things happening coming up. I believe we talked about them on the program before, but IU, who is getting ready for her first ever world tour, that just kicked off in Seoul with 2 dates last weekend. And I believe you guys are going to get 2 more dates this coming weekend, which is so exciting because not only is this just a huge moment for her career, but finally us fans overseas are going to be able to get to see her. I've seen a lot of cool press pick up, a lot of media interest from IU's show. So I'm personally really curious to see how this tour is going to go. So IU is doing that on the live front. And coming up on the albums front, there's some really big releases that I'm very personally excited about. Wendy from Red Velvet will make her solo comeback. Her solo debut was one of my personal favorites from 2021, actually. Billboard named it one of the best solo K-pop songs of that year in 2021. We have Chung-a, a Korean-American artist who's making her long-awaited debut after a year and a half away. We'll have Hongjoon from ATEEZ featuring on her solo single. Yua from Oh My Girl will be back soon. There's a lot of really strong and really unique female soloists kind of making their way soon and hopefully going to enter those Billboard charts as well.
Right, and that being said, Bernie, how do you respond to the surge in the number of solo female artists hitting stages?
I think it's actually incredibly healthy to see this type of diversity in what Korea and K-pop has to offer and can offer. I think it can be a little bit grinding when you just see boy bands and girl bands just coming out just almost with just military-like precision, just coming out over and over, round after round after round. It wears you down. You know, same, more the same. After a while, does not sort of feel great. And so the fact that there's been a bit of a sort of kind of mixing and remixing and more importantly re-releasing. What I love about this lineup of solo female artists is it's a mix of both old and new in the sense that there's some legacy acts, for instance, as Jeff mentioned, IU, to more importantly new acts. And I am sort of really excited to see that in the same way that a lot of male solo artists from boy bands, without having to break up, but during the peak of their sort of trajectory, are also able to flex to their fans their sort of true colors as solo artists. So to see that very tried and true formula being applied to girl bands and having these female artists, these women, take the stage to really show what they're capable of, I think for K-pop fans around the world who want a little bit of a change in their sort of auditory diet of what to enjoy, I think this is fantastic.
Right, and Bernie just mentioned we have boy bands. There we have BTS member V. I believe he announced a comeback single, Friends. Jeff, what more can you tell us about that?
Yes, you know, our BTS really on hiatus. Are they even in the military? They're bringing us so much, and it's so exciting. V, who had such a big breakout year last year with his solo album Layover, I was named #2 best K-pop album by Billboard for last year. He is coming back with this digital single, Friends, and you know, it's been a bit mysterious so far in terms of what's been released. He announced it with a bit of a moody trailer. There's been a concept film that's been released. We haven't seen anything about the concept photos yet, or there's been a short film so far, but everything is quite mysterious, quite interesting, and you know, it's very artistic and very mysterious and cool in the sense that he has always sort of been able to do so with his solo music. Layover, like I mentioned, that album is very jazz inspired, very much you know, had a specific aesthetic that really hadn't been seen by any of the BTS members before. So this new single, Friends, it has sort of, it's got a bright pink cover on it, but it's highlighting the word end, and we can't really exactly tell what V is going to bring here with this new concept and this new single. But as you can see in that clip right there, it's got a really interesting aesthetic to it. So I'm super curious when that is going to come out and how fans will react. It's coming out next Friday, which indicates it's going to have sort of an international, global focus for it. So we'll hopefully see a really good global response to this song.
Right, hopefully, of course. Bernie, like Jeff mentioned, despite its enlistment, BTS has been making a tangible effort to keep its fans engaged. What do you suppose are the broader implications of this on the music industry as a whole? Well,
you know, when I talk about, or I should say answer this question, I'm going to go a little off the rails. Just a few days ago, BTS's company, Hype, just recently did their investor relations presentation to talk about, you know, they had a bigger and better year without having BTS as a full band, you know, performing and making music. And I think for many people in the music industry, you know, obviously there was a lot of concern that, oh, if they go to the military, that, you know, they might miss a beat, skip a beat, maybe suffer a little bit of a slide or slowdown. But if anything, they've proven to everybody that, you know, even without BTS, the way they mapped out their solo endeavors and solo careers and, you know, projects, it almost really doesn't feel as if BTS actually really went into the military, because there's constantly new music, new videos, new content coming out where they've not only kept the momentum, but if anything, they elevated. And now coming back full circle to this investor relations report, it was done by their CEO, and everyone was like, wow, this is amazing. They had a great year. And then they dropped the mic where they said, oh, by the way, that presentation you just saw, that was an avatar. That was all done by AI. And then they brought out the real CEO and the CFO to answer the questions for the investors. And for any of you out there, I'm just going to say, go out and look and watch that video. You cannot tell that that is not the CEO. So the fact that, you know, Hybe obviously has done wonderful in music, but they've made incredible strides in music tech and this AI, I thought was great. And so I had to slip that in because I didn't tell the scriptwriter we should talk about it. We had to. But nonetheless, to make a long story longer, the fact that BTS is in the military and has actually done better, I think in many ways has shown the industry that the military service may not actually be a headache or a hiccup. It actually may help. And so I think, you know, kudos and credit to how this was handled and more importantly to the success.
Right. Jeff, moving forward, solo male artists, they're also looking to stage comebacks this month. What's the latest on that particular front?
Yeah, and I mean, Bernie nailed it with just the amount of preparation that the BTS members themselves put into this time away, that they're not going to exactly be present with us, but still providing their fans with a lot of content. J-Hope from BTS, we have to mention his upcoming project, which is a really intriguing thing and something I'm super curious about. It's a documentary album project that called On the Street that is focusing on, you know, things that inspire J-Hope from an artist perspective, which is street dancing. You know, we're seeing the teaser right now, which is so great. There's some really interesting collaborations on this record with not only members of BTS like Jungkook, but dynamic duo, the legendary hip-hop duo, Niles Rodgers, legendary chic guitarist, Betty Blanco, famous pop producer. There's a lot of cool, Yoon Mi-rae, I believe she's also on it, humongous, you know, female rapper, humongous names in that way. And I personally think we're going to see a really, really exciting response to what J-Hope is able to do with this record in particular. And there's also, you know, many more male soloists coming up. Big Bang's Daesung, who recently left his longtime home of YG Entertainment, is coming out with his new records. Members of iKON, who also recently left YG Entertainment, coming out with their solo records like DK and June. A lot of very cool and unexpected sounds coming from these guys, whether it's been sort of the acoustic, you know, seasonal sounds of spring from Daesung, DK's very cool and moody R&B sound, or June's sort of trot-inspired comeback with his new album. There's a lot to check out with the guys, and many things, you know, that just go beyond your typical K-pop comebacks, but a lot of different sounds as well.
Right, and along with these new sounds, Bernie, I understand we're looking at new boy bands as well. We're poised to meet with SM's NCT Wish. Tell us more.
Yeah, you know, this is an interesting announcement. You know, SM Entertainment, you know, has constantly, regularly, always announced that they have new bands, boy bands, girl bands, solo acts coming out. But this one in particular has quite a bit of significance. Number one is when we say SM, in this case we may have to put some parentheses or maybe some markers around that, because on the same day that Chairman Lee, the founder of SM Entertainment, the namesake of SM Entertainment, Lee Soo-man, finally sold all his shares in his own namesake company on the same day they announced NCT Wish. Now, granted, the moniker NCT was the brainchild of Chairman Lee. It stands for Neo Culture Technology, but NCT Wish is going to be the first boy band project coming out of SM Entertainment that does not have the involvement of Chairman Lee, the SM of SM Entertainment. And so for many people in the industry, you know, obviously there's hope that they will continue that legacy and continue that sort of brand power of SM Entertainment, but this is definitively the first time, the first act that's going to be coming out from SM Entertainment, but post-SM.
Already symbolic. Jeff, as for new girl groups, I hear the competition, and do correct me if I'm wrong, is between YG and producer Teddy.
Well, that's definitely one of them for sure. And it's a super interesting time in terms of these new acts that are coming out. NCT Wish is a perfect example of SM Entertainment moving into a new chapter in its company's history. Same thing happening for YG Entertainment, another long historied production company and agency from Korea for its pop groups. Right now, they are very focused on their new girl group, Baby Monster. We're seeing right now now on the screen. This is the 7-member group who is YG's first group since Blackpink. Naturally, Blackpink is the humongous name that we all know. Blackpink, of course, followed up 21, another huge, globally beloved group. And very interestingly, Teddy, the producer, who has long been under YG, not only for 21 and Baby Monster and Blackpink's music, rather, but for their artists like Big Bang. Teddy is not involved in Baby Monster, and this has been sort of a shift for YG Entertainment girl groups. Instead, Teddy is now focused on his own label, the Black label, which is a subsidiary of YG Entertainment that is not only trying to showcase, Teddy's involvement as a producer, but really make a name for itself in a larger agency way. Not only do they have artists like Joan Somi, who is a soloist and beloved soloist that has Teddy producing for her. They have Taeyang from Big Bang, who moved to that label from YG Entertainment. But it's confirmed that they are working on their girl group. And I know personally that there's a lot of big plans for this girl group and a lot of high expectations for them. So as the Black label kind of tries to develop, not only solo artists, but it's now debuting idol groups. It's signed different artists, actors to its label, like Park Bo-gum, for example. It's a really interesting time to see if, of course, a company is made up by all its parts and all the creatives within it. But, it'll be interesting to see if Teddy, who was, sort of the student, if you will, under YG Entertainment for so long, will sort of be able to surpass the master of YG and sort of be able to break out on his own, if it does come down to sort of this new generation girl group battle in that way. So there's a lot to watch out for these young women, and I'm super, super excited to see what comes from them in that way.
Right, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that when we meet next. Right, as always, Jeff, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. And Bernie here in the studio, thank you very much for your insights.
Oh, thank you.
Right, well, that is time for us to say goodbye then. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow. That is Friday.
A site where the Republic of Korea's past, present, and future coexist. Encounter all those times at the Independence Hall of Korea.
Thinking and I close my eyes, everything is black and white. I can't tell if we're getting closer. Running up against the tide, I could go my whole life playing this thing just over and over.
The center of the Republic of Korea's history and culture, the Independence Hall of Korea.